Oh, my goodness gracious. The transfer portal is brutal, but it is alive.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, gang, thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Huskers. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate it. And for you everydayers, thank you for what you do and your commitment to showing up for this content. Greatly appreciate it. I want to thank the folks from Built Bar. Now, if flavor and healthy are important to you, Built Bar is for you. If you're close to a Sam's Club, they've got you covered. They've got 13 bar boxes. They've got hit flavors, brownie, batter puff, and churro puff. Thank me later. You can try the coconut puff. You can try the double chocolate bar. All of that's available to you. Built.com. Go check it out right away. Couple of things that we will cover in this episode. And I wanted to focus on the offensive side of the ball for the Huskers because we've been focusing on this magic number of 85 that has to be reached, and I'm not sure what the path is going to be. 85 scholarships is what's allowed. The Nebraska Huskers currently stand at 92, which means there are 7 additional, at least 7 other football players who are going to dive into the transfer portal. Whether they're going to dive in or be forced in, nudged in, coerced in. Each story is different. But there are currently 92 scholarship athletes on the football program. They have to get to 85. Now, 85 as that number isn't exactly the only number that has to be considered, because that's just getting to 85 with the talent that's currently on the roster. That does not include or consider if Nebraska wants to bring in additional talent at any of these positions. And today we'll stick to the offensive side. Tomorrow next episode we'll go into the defensive side of the ball. But the offensive side of the ball, the numbers are pretty glowing and they're pretty interesting. And there's some interesting stories that are being built behind the scenes. So I want to take a second because, again, if with today's news, of course, Logan Smothers is in the transfer portal. Richard Torres is now in the transfer portal. So that currently leaves Nebraska with 4 scholarship quarterbacks in the quarterback room. Casey Thompson, Jeff Sims, Heinrich Harburg, and Chopper Purdy. I'm not 100% sure that room stays the same over the course of the next month or so. I know that schools have shown interest in 3 of those quarterbacks. Now, whether all 3 of them stay, all 3 of them go, 1 or 2 of them go, but there is substantial money in play, right? So if folks are looking at that room, getting down to 4 is pretty important. Now, Jeff Welch is there as a walk-on. And this is a high school national champion quarterback from IMG Academy. If he's a part of your program, this is a high IQ, super athletic quarterback. So to have him around is a pretty big statement. And then so I would say that if another quarterback leaves, then there's another quarterback that would be brought in as well. But I think 5 would be the number that I would kind of land at. If they stay at 4. And it's this 4, I think we're okay. I think we should be okay as fans in that this 4, Casey Thompson, Jeff Sims, Heinrich Harburg, Chopper Purdy, being the 4 in the room that can get you through a season and get you what you want. Now, go to the next room, the running back room, where there are 6 current Huskers on scholarship. So Anthony Grant, who is much a front runner for the actual starting position. Gabe Irvin Jr., A.J. Allen, Ramir Johnson. Those are the 4 that have all logged minutes already. So we kind of know the product that's in play. And those were folks that were already here. Now, a big part of this roster shakeup is that Matt Purdy and this coaching staff have to make sure that their future is set and that they have people that are going to be the next group behind this group. And you have a senior running back, a junior running back, a sophomore running back, and then 2 redshirt freshman running backs. The 2 names to consider, Quentin Ives, who's a freshman, and then Emmett Johnson, who's a redshirt freshman. If you said going into the season at 6 running backs, scholarship running backs, if you feel like this 4 is good enough, then you could stand pat. You could just stand pat. I don't know what they're going to do, what the numbers are, because the numbers have changed, and each coaching staff has his own idea of what they think the ideal is, and that's a real thing. Like, that's a real thing that each coaching staff, some coaches want to be considered of special teams as a priority and focus because they believe that's the third team, offense, defense, special teams, and they want to have enough talent for you to not only be competent but to be good on special teams. And so a lot of these positions are where those positions get those spots get filled, and it's folks who may not play. You may not get an offensive carry at the running back position, but you could be on for special teams, and that's how your value is chosen. But 6, so there are 4 quarterbacks and 6 running backs. If they stayed where they are, and I don't know that they will, the assumption has to be that you have enough talent in those rooms as they stand. Matt Rule has said this is the most talented quarterback room he's been in college. So the quarterback room, again, if it's 4 starters, 4 folks who, quite frankly, you'd feel comfortable with behind center, and then 1 development guy and a practice squad guy, that could be the number. These other rooms aren't quite as simple because the numbers are just all over the place. And you have to start with the tight end room. We'll look at those numbers. I'm just going to put things in play. The tight end position also is tied to the fullback position because Matt Rule said that he intends to use his tight ends as H-backs. And so identifying people who could do those things, or it identifies a position of need through the transfer portal as we figure it out. Lots more to talk about. We'll talk about the tight end room. Then we'll get to the big guys. We'll talk about that when we come back to Lockdown. Hey, gang, welcome back. Thank you for making Lockdown Huskers a part of your daily Husker content consumption. Greatly appreciate it. If you have not subscribed, please drop down and hit the alarm button and get this content sent to you. Thursday, NFL draft. So Locked On and its NFL mock draft should be helpful. Again, Nebraska has some players that should be in those middle rounds. I would expect that all 4 of them go between 2 and 6. The ones that you would think of, and then there may be a surprise in somebody like Chancellor Brewington getting moved up through this thing. But you can find it on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast content. We were talking about the offense, and I want to focus on the offense in this episode because the numbers are pretty intense. I mean, 7 scholarship players have to be removed from scholarship in order for this thing to work. And it's at least 7 because for every player that Nebraska wants to bring in, you have to go that number under 85. Like, they can bring in 3 new players, but that puts them back at 10 over, and that means 10 players have to be released. So Nebraska has some work to do. Now, a part of this incredible number and the mathematics behind it is that there are 14 offensive linemen under scholarship currently. The 5 juniors, and this is a thing to circle, that they don't have any seniors in this room. There are no seniors in the offensive line. Yeah, it's when I saw that number, I went, oh, wow, this is a future thing. And 6 of them have started games in Division I football, Power 5 football. So Bryce Benhart, Turner Corcoran, Ethan Piper, Nuri, and Ben Scott, those 5 are the juniors. Teddy Prohaska is a sophomore. Henry Lutowski is a sophomore. So those 7, given their history and their popularity, those 7, I would assume, unless the post-spring practice exit interviews didn't go as well as we would think they would go, that those 7 are a part of the conversation. And then 2 sophomores and Justin Jenkins and Jacob Hood, who the coaches have raved about at various points during the spring. Liked them both. They stood up on Saturday, played extra reps, went through the whole thing. Well, then it becomes there are 5 freshman linemen. Of the 5, so there's Gunnar Katola, Brock Knudsen, Sam Sledge, Mason Goldman, and John Majeshak. And 14, while not a ridiculous number, if you're having to cut at the volume Nebraska has to cut, that number for the offensive line probably has to be 13. It probably has to be 13 because special teams work doesn't always get additional use for offensive linemen. You're not going to put your offensive linemen on the kickoff team or the return team. They're not going to be on the punt return team. They're not going to be on the punt team. So holding 14 spots and then still trying to fill your special teams, that number is a big number. The tight end room is connected to the offensive line room because you're looking for people who can do this thing that if they say they're going to run the ball and be physical, the easiest identifier for that is the tight end position, what's going to be asked of them, what the demands are going to be. And then on top of that, the fact that Matt Rule in this offense has said that we need for the tight end to play some fullback to give us additional leverage in the run game. And if you're going to talk about sets where there's 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends, you need a bunch of people. And tight ends tend to be special teams players. Like if you're a tight end, you're probably likely to be on special teams at some point. So Thomas Fedoni, AJ Rollins, who actually should move over to the defensive side. He should be a part of the defensive number now because that's where he's getting his work is on defense. Marie Gilbert, Janirin Bonner, Jake Applegate, and Chase Androff. Now, look, I know that they love Jake Applegate, local kid, high football IQ, great athlete, legacy. Like there's a connection to Nebraska football in that name. And there's Chase Androff and Ismail Smith-Flores. Ismail Smith-Flores is a freshman. Chase Androff is a redshirt freshman. So what do you do? Now, 7 at tight end. You're actually at 6, which tells me that you might want to bring in another tight end, somebody that can help you at fullback as well, because I'm not sure I see the other folks helping you at tight end. But those are the numbers that are in play. And we're just getting to the good part because on this team, there are 11 wide receivers currently. 11. And listen, Sean Hardy just jumped into the portal. I think that's not a surprise, but here are some things to consider. Marcus Washington, Josh Fleeks, Billy Kemp IV, seniors. In most theories and thinking, you can see those as the starting wide receivers. Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda, who took a year off, came back to the program, got lots of conversation, can help them in the return game. Let's see how connected he is to the program. Xavier Betts, sophomore, local. Lots of reasons for him to be here. Again, took a year off away from the program, and now he's back. So those two are there. That puts you at 5. And then there are 6 freshman wide receivers. Now, if you're trying to win this year, I'm not sure you can ride with 6 freshman wide receivers. Malachi Coleman was as highly ranked and sought after as anybody on the list. Jaden Doss, Bryce Turner, Jalen Lloyd, Jeremiah Charles, and Demetrius Bell. That's 11. And if you pay attention to the local conversation, it's that Nebraska needs a top-level receiver. So somebody's going to probably be at it, and somebody will have to go. Those are the numbers that we're talking about when we're talking about the receiver room. Again, at least 7 have to be removed. I would think that 3 or 4 of those are going to be from offense. That's just how it works. We'll throw the break here. When we come back, I'll close out. I want to get away from football for a moment. I want to talk about the great baseball season that 2 Huskers are having. I want to talk about this historic run by Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate it. The next episode we'll cover the defensive side of the ball and those scholarships, because each of those rooms have their own stories. And 3 or 4 at a minimum of those defensive players who are currently under scholarship will not be under scholarship with Nebraska next week this time. So we'll talk about that in the next episode of Locked On Huskers. I wanted to take a small trip down the road from football to baseball. And Will Bolt and the Huskers are having a good season, but 2 players on the roster are having incredible seasons. And these are, if one player was doing this, it's a great year. The Huskers have 2. Max Anderson, who came in as a third baseman, moved to second base to help the team. But offensively, he's everything that he was pitched and sold to be. He's currently hitting .406 in the 37 games. And in 37 games with 13 home runs, 46 RBI, 13 doubles, and playing a pretty rock-solid second base. .406 this young man is hitting. Listen, to have that kind of year, that's good news and bad news for the Huskers, because what I would imagine is Max Anderson is probably in his final days as a Husker. I would imagine that Major League Baseball are finding their way into his DMs and having conversations about the future. So, and then if that wasn't enough and that wasn't exceptional enough, I'm not sure that Max Anderson, with the season that he's had, is having the best season for the Huskers. I'm still not sure, because Bryce Matthews is playing shortstop, and Bryce Matthews is hitting .401. That means that the 1 spot and the 3 spot for the Huskers hitting .401 and .406. Bryce currently sitting at 15 home runs, 55 RBI. There's a suspended game where he hit another home run that if they catch that up, his number jumps up to 16 and 56. He's also a 15 and 15 guy. 15 home runs, 15 stolen bases. And doing that at shortstop and hitting leadoff lets you know that he's doing it in big moments and volume. Again, you got a leadoff hitter with 55 RBI. 15 home runs. Listen, 2 young men. Well done. Well done. I wanted to make sure that I took a moment and highlighted the exceptional years that these 2 young men are having. Look forward to whatever it's going to be in the future. But as it stands, 2 400 hitting double-digit home run guys in the same roster, same lineup for the Huskers. That's something to cheer about. Thank you once again for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate it. Subscribe if you have not. And we'll close the show as we always do with the 3 words that mean so much. Go Big Red.